Have you ever made one change for your health and we're kind of frustrated by the outcomes of it? You know, maybe you started doing an exercise, maybe you started with a certain type of diet, you started with a certain type of supplementation, but you weren't getting the result that you wanted to get, and you didn't see that it was worth it. So overall, you stopped. This is not something that's uncommon, and we're going to get into how we can overcome this, and what the reasoning behind making these big changes to your health actually are. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've been blessed to work with thousands of people, helping them optimize their brain function, their body function, and then supply the energy to those areas so no matter what kind of environment they're put in, they can pull the resources they need to get the outcome they want. So it's pretty common for me to hear people come in and they're frustrated. You know, they've done one thing and it isn't working the way that they want. And a lot of times a diet is a good example of this, and diet is going to be more of the specific thing that we talk about, but we're going to talk about overall health as well, because there's a lot of overlap in these different areas. So when we talk about diets, people come in and they're like, okay, I did this and it worked really, really well for me, but it wasn't sustainable. Or I did this and I didn't notice much difference from it. I added this supplement and it really didn't do anything, or whatever that may be. Now, over the past couple of weeks here, I've read multiple different research articles, and ultimately what they were talking about is how single supplementation doesn't work as well as when we co-supplement with certain things. And the supplements that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to write them over here just in case you want to research them later. If you have questions on them, I do have certain recommendations on the ones that I use. But we're going to talk about vitamin D. We're going to talk about fish oil, or omega-3s specifically, and we're going to talk about probiotics. Now, the vitamin D, fish oil, and probiotics all have profound effects on our health. So let's start by diving into the fish oil itself. So when we look at fish oil is something that's very important for the inflammatory processes. It's very, very important for your cell membranes. If you don't have enough omega-3s, you can't make healthy cell membranes. So you start integrating other fats into the cell membrane. It doesn't work as well, and then you get frustrated with the outcome. But the fish oil, really when we look at it, what we should be testing here is we should do a omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And this tells us a lot of things about if you have enough of it available. It's a simple blood test. It's something that I run on myself regularly because it's something that's thrown off. A lot of people, especially in the Midwest, we don't eat enough seafood to get this. So I supplement with fish oil. I eat plenty of seafood, but this is a number that's not always right. And where it should be is 4 to 1. It's not uncommon for me to see people that are 20 to 1. 15 to 1, 100 to 1 even the other day. So it's crazy how high these can get. And the more of this omega-6 that we have, the more inflammatory this is. So it starts to inflame your system. It starts to do all these other things. So fish oil can help dampen down inflammation. But if you start taking fish oil alone, it's probably not going to be enough to take you to that next level. Why? Let's dive into vitamin D first, and then we'll dive into probiotics, and then we'll put it all together here at the end. So just bear with me for just a moment. So on the vitamin D is something that everybody's like, I just need to go out in the sun more, right? Something that everybody that I've talked to about vitamin D supplementation has told me that. However, we are in the northern hemisphere, so most of the year the sun is not going to give us the benefit that we need to actually make enough vitamin D. Many of us aren't outside enough to actually get the benefit of it, right? So we can't make it. But when our omega-6 to omega-3 balance is thrown off, our body doesn't make vitamin D as efficiently either. So even in those summer months when the sun is here and we could theoretically make vitamin D, many of us either aren't outside enough or we don't have the proper balance of the omega-6 to omega-3s to actually make enough vitamin D. And so we go into those winter months with it already low, and that's why we see almost everybody I test in vitamin D in the Midwest is low, and especially if we test it in the winter, it's almost a guarantee that it's going to be low unless they're supplementing with it. So this is where that vitamin D comes in. Vitamin D is a very, very important nutrient for the immune system. It's a very, very important nutrient for inflammation. It starts running some of these other things. So we have to have this balance in here. And if we don't have that balance, then again, This one ends up with inflammation. Vitamin D ends up with inflammation. It all affects immune function, all these different things. So we've got to have that balanced out. Now the probiotics come in and they do similar things, right? So if our gut is thrown off, then we instantly start to have inflammation. Our gut is in an easily inflamed area. Why? The things that we take in, if it produces more of the bad bacteria, or if it feeds more of that bad bacteria, it starts to take root and it starts to grow out of control. So a good analogy for this is if you have a nice luscious lawn, that lawn keeps all of the weeds out. You don't have to do too much work. You can go out and you can just do some spot treatments here and there and keep the weeds out. However, if you have a patchy lawn, you have to be very, very careful because those weeds come in and they start to proliferate very, very fast. And pretty soon they're killing off all the grass and you lose, right? This is the same thing that happens to your gut. If you can keep those good bacteria populated, then we keep those negative at a minimum. But when we don't have those populated, then those negative ones start to spiral. Things that kill off the good bacteria. Pesticides. So insecticides, pesticides have been shown to do that. So Roundup is one that kills off some of the good bacteria. 2,4-D has been shown to kill off some of the good bacteria. There's a lot of these chemicals that are very, very commonly used that start to spiral us in the bad direction. Sugar and refined carbohydrates feed the negative ones. When we have any kind of yeast in our system or anything like that, it kills off the good bacteria. So we've got to make sure that we're feeding that good bacteria, but we also have to make sure we're populating them. That's why I like more of a broad spectrum probiotic. A lot of the probiotics just have Lactobacillus acidophilus. They're good, right? But when we can have a more broad spectrum, it has a lot more immune function, it has a lot of changes in the brain, it obviously has changes in the gut, and it decreases the inflammation because as we can heal our gut, we start to decrease the inflammation. So the common theme that you're hearing here is all of these have inflammation as a key, right? So you're coming at it from multiple different angles. And when we can come at it from multiple different angles, we're more likely to get a robust outcome that's going to dampen down that inflammation, right? And this right here is the key to taking all of this. When we start adding these together, this is what health is, right? Because when we just exercise, when we just diet, when we just focus on sleep, different things like that, we may see some benefit. But we're going to see more benefit as we start to compound these. Now, how do you start adding all of this stuff? So in the beginning, this supplementation is going to be a phenomenal way to just kind of, like I said, dampen down your inflammation, put you back in control because it's going to change the way your brain functions. It's going to change the way your immune system functions. It's going to change inflammation, which changes healing and repair and all these other things that go with this. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot of layers that are in this. But when we start to do things, it's much, much easier to add something in than it is to deprive ourselves of something, right? So instead of, replacing all of the sugar in our diet with vegetables, add some vegetables in. That's it. We start adding something in without taking anything away. After we get used to this, then we can start minimizing something else. But we just start to make these small changes here and there, and it's not depriving ourselves in any way, shape, or form. And ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to start with this. Imagine this is a hill. You got this little bitty snowball up here, and as it comes down, you got this massive snowball down here, where you're making a bigger and bigger impact. So at the same time that you start eating vegetables, you could start doing a couple push-ups here and there. You can start going for a walk on a daily basis. That's even better. Get outside and walk because that sunlight, that nature is going to change brainwaves. All of this stuff starts to resonate and starts to move you forward. As we start to do that, we can start a sleep routine. We're starting to go to bed every night at the same time. We're starting to wake up every night at the same time. And this is how we get this big snowball at the end of the hill, is we start slowly adding to this. And the same thing happens, and like I said, everything in health is the same thing. When we talk about chiropractic care, people come in and they can't move very easily, right? So if this is the range of motion that they can have, we're not going to go from there to here in a day in most cases, right? In some cases it's possible, but if you've had this for years, you're not going to go to where you have a full range of motion right away. So we go from this to this to this. And then pretty soon, we have that full range of motion. It all comes back as we start to work that, because we start to decrease that inflammation. We start to move more. We start to, get some of those positive pathways, get some of that nutrition in and different things, and it starts adding up, and that spiral starts stacking in your direction. And this is the thing that I see too many people failing at, is we've got to have all of this. And like I said, this is backed up by multiple research articles. We've got to do multiple things at once. Now, I know that this can be overwhelming. Like I said, this down here is how you start making the change. You start making one small change right now. It doesn't mean you have to start one change right now in diet, one change in exercise, one change in sleep. It means this week you could do something in diet, and next week sustain that and add something in exercise. And the next week add something from diet, exercise, and sleep, to where you're getting 3 things. And then you start to spiral it. As you start to feel better, it gets easier and easier. We start to see that progress. And when we see that progress, we start to get a little bit more excited about it. As we get more excited about it, we're more likely to do more of it. And we're like, hey, you know what? The sugar probably isn't helping me out. I'm going to see what happens if I take some of that out, start cutting that back. And then it starts to go in our direction. And this is very, very common in the gym scene. We see people who start to exercise, they see a little bit of progress, and it just automatically, without them putting much effort in it, automatically changes their diet, because they're like, I'm putting in all this work, I don't want to do that. So they start minimizing in other areas, and they make really, really, really fast progress. And this is what I want for you. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about, the aging process, if we're talking about immune processes, if we're talking about all these other things. When we look at the things that vitamin D and fish oil and probiotics can help with, there's a whole list of things that are in this research. Anything from schizophrenia to autoimmunity to aging. Like fish oil has been shown to improve the healing times in aging. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that this applies to. It's not just a one-size-fits-all, of course, but it's going to apply to many different characteristics, because the one thing that we see is all disease processes is this over here. Inflammation is driving it. So when we can knock down that inflammation, we knock down the disease process. As always, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions on this, please reach out, like or subscribe if it is helpful, because it gives me good information as far as what I can supply you with. But I appreciate your time and attention. I know that's your greatest resource. I appreciate you spending some of that time with me, and I will catch you on next week's video.